Good evening. I'd like to call property management committee to order. First order of business, approval of minutes.
I reviewed those minutes, Mr. Chair, and found everything to be in order and move for their approval.
Got a motion?
Second, Mr.
Second,
Chairman.
all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. First thing on the agenda, presentation of by Ron Graham with Siemens. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
You want to sit down there with the man?
I'll go wherever you want me to
Down
go.
there with the man.
He was asking, said, well, where does the mayor sit? I said, basically wherever he wants
Wherever
to
you
stay.
feel like
Chairman McInerney,
Okay.
members of the committee, appreciate this opportunity to come to you. Basically, the mayor and I had some meetings talking about how Siemens could look at the opportunities in Rutherford County facilities and use what we call guaranteed savings under an energy services performance contract to improve the facilities. And so the mayor sent us out to the adult detention facility. Said, take a look out there and see what we can do out there. So we went out to the facility. We reviewed the utility data. We did a site visit. And on May the 1st, we came back to the mayor, Ms. Acta, and the sheriff were there, present at this meeting. We presented our feasibility assessment that said we're confident that we've got a project out at the facility that would self-fund through energy savings and make some facility improvements at the adult detention facility. So the mayor, we talked about the next steps. Next steps were that Siemens would need to develop the project. So there would be a project development agreement between the county and Siemens to go back in the facility, bring engineering, our vendors, suppliers, and so forth, and develop a project so that we could bring a project scope back to the county for a self-funded project that would not use any capital dollars, but use guaranteed savings from Siemens in operational savings to make the facility improvements. So the mayor at that point said, I need you to go before this committee at this next meeting, which I'm here today. I'm here today with Allison Shea, our zone sales manager out of Virginia, and Rob Klutzman is our energy engineer, and he's out of the Nashville branch. And he was the one that did the site visit and reviewed the utility data at the facility.
Mr. Chairman, before you get started, let me just speak for a moment. There are a lot of companies that do this, but Siemens is well respected and throughout the planet, I guess, globally. I guess I'm a little partial in that Siemens, probably a different division, but Siemens had recently donated $278 million software program for our mechatronics to MTSU, the largest gift ever given to a four-year university in the state of Tennessee. So that just gave me confidence that Siemens knows what they're doing. And Ron made the presentation, of course, talking with the sheriff and Preble. That building's getting some age. And I was getting nervous of having to come back and ask for more money to patch an old structure. So that's when we said, you can call Preble.
I was skeptical.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate
All right,
a little introduction for us. So the first thing I want to do is kind of where the mayor and I started is how can we do this? What's this process that we use so that we can use operational savings to improve the facility, not have any capital budget impact? So let's see what button did I push? That's fine. I'll push this one. Oh, okay. This is the one. Okay, here we go.
Good recovery.
So what we're looking at is taking improvements to the facility and generating operational savings by these improvements being more efficient, and then taking these savings from operational savings and financing these improvements. So we make the improvements, we reduce energy use and associated expenses, and your energy savings finance the improvements. One thing that Siemens does, we've been company for 170 years, so I think you can stand behind our guarantee, is we guarantee the savings during the contract period. So we will guarantee that the savings that we tell you that you're going to make will be a savings that you can depend on. Brett will ask me, well, can you use a real example? So this is hypothetical, here's how we do business. So this is Montgomery County government. Okay, we did more than just the jail in Montgomery County. We did several buildings up there. But on the left over here is their baseline energy use. And what we did was a project that had $5 million worth of improvements to Montgomery County buildings. And this guarantee was $8.7 million in savings over the 15-year term. So you can see that we dropped the utility baseline. That first year was $464,000 savings. That increases over time, and that's what the project was able to do with no capital investment. Kind of how that looks, year after year is, year one, that 464, and each year we guaranteed an amount till that amount totaled to $8.7 million. And if you have any questions as we go through, just stop me.
Well, I got, you may be coming to this, the answer to this question. If you are,
Yes, sir.
just let me know. So you're saying the guaranteed savings and the savings will pay for the capital projects. Well, how do we pay for the capital projects prior to making those savings?
Right. There's a construction period. There would be some type of a debt instrument issued. And Siemens helps, with the debt, what the financing would be,
Okay.
but we look for opportunities to get grants or rebates or anything like that. But then once that decision on debt is made, the savings are going to not only, repay for those capital project dollars, they'll also retire the debt as well.
So in Montgomery County, it was just over $5 million that was probably borrowed or something. And then the payments were made from the savings. So we would take the money that we saved from utility costs or whatever,
Right.
and then make those payments.
Correct.
Yeah, if you go back to the slide before, it gives a good illustration of that. So so they were saving the total amount that's on the left there, and so after the improvements were made, yeah, that's where their utility, how much they were spending at that point. So everything above that line was savings. They used a portion of the savings, we're showing it as guaranteed savings by Siemens, to pay down the debt service. And then they also overdrove savings, so they were able to actually realize some savings in addition to it.
Yeah, so all this
So-
realized savings during the term of the contract, the county could use however they chose in their budget. And then, this line up at the top is, over time, energy costs go up, equipment ages, and that was the projected line of what it would have been without the project. So,
So as it ages, the cost goes up a little bit, but still not what they would have, nearly what they would have been without the improvements.
correct.
Is the excess savings in the light yellow at the top, was that incorporated into the income to pay off the debt?
No, this
Just in the
amount hereby
orange.
guaranteed by savings retires the debt. So that can be used however the county.
Was it a
chooses.
$5 million capital expenditure from the start? 5.1 million? Did Montgomery County borrow 5.1, paid it to Siemens? Is that correct?
Well, actually, in the case of Montgomery County, there was another bond issue that this became part of. But in this, if that had been the case, where it wasn't a bigger bond issue, yeah, they would have borrowed an amount to pay for the capital, and then we would have generated savings that would have paid for that expense, basically. Yes, sir.
So basically, the first year utility savings, 348,000 plus, that could very well be a payment to the debt, or how we chose.
Right, they had 340 in utility savings, another 115 in O&M savings in their
Which
particular
O&M?
case. Operation and maintenance.
Okay, got it.
So when after the project is developed, and we come back with an actual performance contract based on the final scope, we'll provide a pro forma cash flow based on the final financing arrangement. That'll show the amortization schedule and the cash flow with the P&I payment, what the surplus savings. If you want surplus, some counties will say, we don't want any surplus, spend it all on the facility, we have too much need, we don't want to pocket any. Some say, well, we'd like to reduce 5% off of our spend and still make the improvement. So we look to you to define that to us. But we'll provide that kind of pro forma so you can actually see the P&I payment and how it amortizes.
And maybe I'll, get to kind of where we are, I guess, right here. So this was kind of a big picture of where this project could go and how we could utilize the savings to pay for the project. So Mayor Ketron asked us to do this evaluation. We with confidence said there are savings in your operation budget that we can self-fund based on our experience. We've worked with correctional facilities all across the country. The next step was to develop this project development letter, and Mayor Ketron said he didn't need to run this by your committee and I think budget anyway to get approval. So that's kind of where we were. I want to talk about there's 3 outcomes. So we're going to develop a project development agreement together. This project development agreement will talk about the objectives of this project, like if it's going to self-fund, what the terms are going to be, if there's any amount that we're supposed to stay under, whatever those objectives are. Siemens then goes forward after he executes this project development letter that we're asking for your approval today. We go forth then and develop a project scope, in communication with the sheriff's office, the mayor, and we'll come back to you with this contract-ready pricing, a firm fixed price contract, no change orders. We're bear the risk of that cost that'll be paid for with these guaranteed savings. So we'll come back to the county with this for execution of contract. Then that contract would be executed. That's kind of outcome number 1, and we move forward with the project and execute the project. Outcome number 2 is we do develop this project agreement between the county and Siemens. We go out and try to develop a project that's self-funding, meets all the objectives, and we come back to the county and say, it's not going to work. We can't find enough savings by technologies we'll employ or changes we'll make in the facility. And you don't know Siemens anything. It's just we kind of part ways and say we couldn't make this work. And the third is we develop this scope, this project scope that meets all the objectives that we agree to in our project development agreement. And the county at some point says, we don't want to go forward. We don't want to continue with this contract. At that point, the county would share a portion of those development costs that Siemens incurred to develop the project. We can go over that a little bit later. So I wanted to kind of talk about when we went to the facility and did our due diligence. They were looking at buying a couple of washers and a couple of dryers. They've got a capacity issue in their laundry facility. That was a high priority for the facility. And they don't work.
Clothesline.
Yeah.
People want to keep things clean. Well, anyway, they've got this money to buy these 2 washers and 2 dryers. The laundry room itself would need to be expanded because there's not enough room to put these additional equipment in the facility. And that deals with all the connection issues and that sort of thing. So, there were some issues there with the facility. There's also these unfunded projects that are out there. One of them we happened to see was on top of the roof of the female housing and medical unit. These HVAC units were over 20 years old. And the staff said, we're spending a lot on maintenance on these equipment right now. There's a risk of them failing. If that happens, he's going to come back and say, I need emergency cash to go in here and replace some units. And I guess next year we'd have to come in with a budget request for HVAC units. So there's a lot of these unfunded kind of upgrades that are needed in the facility. And then there's just these unsolved issues in the facility. They're not like that there's a piece of equipment that needs to be replaced. There's unsolved issues like this cell toilet abuse 2 to 3 times a week. And the inmates will flush their toilet to flood their cell. Maintenance has to respond to that. That causes the facility to overuse water and sewer cost, and it's a safety risk when that happens with the facility. So, we're looking at producing a turnkey project scope that will continue to provide you with this new equipment, laundry equipment you need, but we'll introduce other technologies like ozone that'll help reduce the need for hot water that we've done in other facilities, and so we did it for Montgomery County. We'll address all these deferred maintenance issues now that we can with the savings, you know. And then we'll introduce new technologies. There's a technology you can control the water in the cells so they can't sit there and put something on the toilet, flush, and flood the cell. So there's technologies we can bring in. There's equipment we can replace, all to gain efficiencies and a better system to reduce costs. So we'll bring all that expertise into the facility and make those, whatever the project scope ends up being. These are just examples. These aren't, you know, this is not the list that we're going to necessarily say this is what we're going to do. So it basically takes you from, you'll get $80,000 worth of laundry equipment right now, but you're going to own the risk of the design, the construction, expansion of the facility. There's just a lot of other inherent risks that you're going to get versus Siemens' own risk. Given this firm fixed price contract, we'll own the risk of that. We'll manage the project. You'll get upgrades value, we think, at approximately $1.5 million for this facility, funded entirely from savings, and there's going to be this potential for savings on top of the investment. Okay, let me just pause for a second. That was a lot of information, I know, and I may have rushed a little through that, but I wanted to, I guess, get us to where we are. We've put our due diligence already in the project, and we looked at your utility use. We looked at other facilities in the country and what their average utility cost is versus this facility. Your energy cost alone at this facility is about 40% higher than the average, according to the data that we produce. Excessive water use.
It's double. The water use is just off the chain.
Right.
I have no control over it. We can't control the water.
Right. And there's technologies that we can bring in to do that. So we've identified these areas where we can maximize savings, but we need to do this development of a project. We've got enough experience that this site visit and this evaluation of utility data allows us with confidence to say, we've got a project here. We just need to go in and define that scope, work with some objectives, and come up with a contract-ready price for you. So I think, that's why we're here. That's what we're asking for is your approval for us to move forward to develop this project in cooperation with the county. Again, we'll help with some financing. We have a financial arm of Siemens, but it's up to the county how they like to go to financing. We'll support their efforts. We'll look for any opportunity to get grants or rebates, anything that's out there as well. And in the end, we're basically looking to come back after this project development and come back with a contract ready for execution by the county, deliver the turnkey project. And actually, at the end, it's an important step. We actually measure and verify these savings each year. And so we're going to say, hey, here's what we guarantee is the savings amount. I just did the Rutherford County's measurement verification meeting with them. If we don't meet our savings numbers, we're going to write you a check. We'll make you whole for the savings that we guarantee. So you're not at any risk of us not meeting that obligation to you and making sure that you have the money to retire your debt and pay for this project. And that also kind of keeps us engaged with the facility, helps us identify if there's other opportunities to make savings improvements or whatever we've installed, making sure things are working properly. We check data, things like that. So this is kind of our process. I've included in your handout just some information about the project development letter template that we use. I've got some potential, what we call facility improvement measures back there that include like the ozone in the laundry and the rooftop units and et cetera. So there's kind of two components I think we would want to make sure that you're understanding in this process. And what we're asking for, one is the mayor would seek your authorization to enter into this project development agreement. And it's kind of like an earnest money. If I'm going to go out and buy some property, I bought property, a lot of times you give earnest money for this contract to go through. All right, that earnest money goes for buying the project at the end. You go forward with the contract, it gets paid for. We need to kind of have that earnest money, and it's going to be nothing you give us as a check. It's just a pledge, basically, by the mayor's signature that if we do all this work and come back to you with this contract ready to go, and you decide that you don't want to go forward, that you will reimburse us for a portion of our costs. So that's the only two things, I guess, that we're asking for here today.
Is that determined as 30,000? Is that what I'm reading correctly?
Yeah, we're estimating well in excess of that to develop the project, a project this size. But we've had conversations, and I think Siemens in general has a strong appetite for the project. We're willing to share in the risk so that there's, we both have a little skin in the game. We don't expect the county to own all the responsibility. We don't want to sell you a study. We want to bring a project to you that makes sense and adds value to the county. So we're just looking for a portion or a piece of it to make sure that, everybody feels like they have a stake.
And I want to make sure you understand, this is different than you go out and hire an engineer and spend $100,000 to come up with a project, and you spend that out of your budget, and then they come up with a project, then you fund that project. In this case, all this development costs, all our engineering costs, us bringing in our contractors, our vendors, our suppliers, working with the county, all that cost gets rolled into the project cost and is paid for through our guarantee. So the county, there's no funds that the county's going to have to come up with if we go to contract at all.
And this is above us. Just, people, oh, you got inmates. This is way above, their level of being able to use inmate labor in something like this. We're talking about computers, on the water control, being able to stop water automatically, to control how much water, how many flushes. I can't use
No, we don't have the skill set
of doing this.
for this type of project.
I've got a question. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You're basically asking, or the mayor's wanting to agree for a $30,000 contract for y'all to do this study, correct?
Well, no, sir, I want to make sure that, it's basically an earnest money
Right.
pledge. So we're, this study, and I don't want to call it a study, it's to come back with a firm fixed price contract ready to be executed.
Okay, now, but the question I have is if you come back with your recommendation and the dollar figure says
Don't worry.
$5 million, and we say, well, we can't afford that right now, okay, you said there's a predetermined reimbursement. What
Okay.
percentage, or is it a percentage of the
Yeah.
development
And I'll go
cost,
through
or
that
what
again.
is it?
So we're going to have this project development agreement that'll have some guardrails, I think is the word Allison uses, on what we want to develop. So if there's a maximum, we say we want to develop and fund with savings, that'll be in our objective of what we come back to you with. So there'll be some objectives around how we develop this project. And as long as we meet those objectives and you don't go to contract, that's the only way that you'll pay us this pledge for all the work that we do. But if we come back and we can't meet those objectives that we've set forth in our agreement, then you don't owe us anything. We've spent our money, we tried to make the project work, we couldn't make the project work with the objectives that we laid out. You don't owe us anything,
Okay.
and we walk away from the project.
So what I'm looking at is, if we do the 30,000, which I don't have any heartburn with that, to determine what we need and how it can be handled, to be proactive about this. But what I would have a heartburn about is if it came back and we wouldn't be able to carry this and say, well, you're gonna owe us another $20,000, $30,000. Am I hearing you say that it wouldn't cost anything? That's contradictory to what it says here, because it says a share of the project cost.
Right, if we come back with a project that could be developed with the agreement, the objectives of our agreement, and then you decide not to implement the project, then we would ask for a share of that project development cost back. In this case, we determined that amount could be
She's shaking her head, no, that's not the,
Just to clarify, so once we're under the project development agreement, it will have a specified amount. At this point, the intention is for that specified amount to be $30,000. We will not change that amount. We will develop a project, we'll come back to you with a developed project, and we won't ask you for, if you don't move forward, we won't ask you for any more money associated with it, even if we develop $5 million worth of work. Now, we're very collaborative in that development. We're going to be having conversations around things like, look, is there a cap? Is there a threshold of what your comfort level is of investment and financing? If there is, we don't want to spend your money to go out developing $5 million worth of stuff if you're not going to do $5 million worth of stuff. We want to develop what stands a good likelihood of moving forward, not pie in the sky dreams. So we'll be having conversations with you around that to make sure that we're being good stewards of our money and your money, to make sure we're going down the right path and eventually coming back with a project that meets with criteria that we're continuing to discuss throughout the whole development process. But at the end of the day, if we develop $7 million worth of work, we have an agreement for $30,000. We stand by that agreement.
Well,
We're not gonna ask for any more.
The philosophy is that it's better to be proactive than it is reactive. And there's nothing constant but change. So, and if you don't move with the tide's gonna wash you out into the ocean.
I'm coming back to you next week to ask for $110,000 to pay our utilities. That's putting us up at $925,000 this year. And it's, the city's about to do the sewage and the water.
And that's going to increase
That
the cost.
affects us.
What are they doing to water and sewer?
They're going up.
City's going up, charging
Rates are going up.
I'm gonna be at $1
Commercial
million
rates or whatever you,
the year after. And I'll be at $1.5 million after that if we don't address, just in utilities, and what, 40% of
water,
that's
sewer,
water.
electric as well?
And
Your-
gas.
And gas, all of
Yeah,
your
gas.
4 utilities. Do you have your communications utilities in there, telephone, Wi-Fi, or is that just water, sewer, gas?
That's water, sewer,
No,
gas.
that's water, sewage, gas. That's all that is.
Well, this
And
right here,
electricity.
And
Yeah,
electricity.
I'm sorry, electricity.
no, this right here is the future. Buildings that are being built today already have these components. And so how can you get an older building into the present of the future? And it's things like this. And the school board is already doing this in some respect. And my understanding, they're saving a ton of money.
And they started it under Harry Gill, you remember?
Yes.
Which company's doing that, do you know?
Like geothermal and stuff? I don't know.
I'm not sure what.
Some of the stuff was retrofitted, some of the
Johnson
lighting
Controls?
was retrofitted. I don't know if that was Siemens.
I don't know
or-
who did the light.
Who are your competitors that would be in Murfreesboro? GE or
Schneider Electric.
Schneider? I think Schneider's done some of our schools.
But this is how you get an older building up to the present and into the future as far as cost savings. But my curiosity is, what rebates and grants, if any, did you find from Montgomery County?
And I wasn't here then, Rob, you weren't the project engineer.
No, I wasn't the engineer on that project, but I can tell you that TVA used to offer rebates. They've pretty much gone away. The rebates that they offer now is for actually adding electricity to your building, so it's electrification. But I don't anticipate them coming back anytime soon.
But y'all are experts in going out there and finding whatever's available.
Yeah, we have sources where we can look at what federal rebates are stuff. Maybe there's specific things that apply to prisons and things like that too.
In just your initial lookings around, is ours as bad as Montgomery County or worse? Or?
I told him. It's
I
bad.
can tell you, I've been all over this state, Kentucky, everywhere, and prisons. They're all the same. They all have budget issues. They all have creative inmates who like to do things. And their biggest issue is always water. So we already just ran some numbers, and we know that we can save you about $80,000 a year in water alone. So that's just water. But when we get electricity and gas, and look at all that stuff,
And that was when the utility bill for water was only
Before
300,000.
before they were notified it's going up.
Right, right, so this is an increase.
If I can, sure, note on the water situation. I've got a facility in our room that probably partially of our room is about a 40 by 40, when you say.
I'm sorry, what?
I want to hear from.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Engineer.
Sorry.
Mike Hughes, Rutherford County Engineering. Yes. I helped with a couple of CTAS grants for roof improvements, lighting improvements, so there are sources out there. We'd have to check and see if they're still viable, but we helped with the Rutherford County EMA. They updated their lighting and got a grant for roof improvements and all kinds of energy savings. So there's money out there. We just have to look pretty hard for it.
Yeah. Basically, Mayor, you're wanting authorization to go ahead with this project for the $30,000, correct?
Yeah.
This is an investment in the future, and $30,000 is just a drop in the bucket.
I want to hear from the sheriff, but let me say, Ron, where we are, see the orange ball, there's two more orange circles that need to occur. I don't have authorization, this committee doesn't have authorization, only the full commission does. So we have two more steps. It goes from here to budget next
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. And as it will be sent to budget and then to the full commission. The full commission of 21 commissioners are the only ones that have the ability to tell me to sign the contract. Okay. This is a recommending board. And
Government moves slow.
yeah. If it comes out unanimous, that sends a strong message when he gives his report to the full commission. So you may have to come back from Virginia a couple times.
So our recommendation will go to budget, and then from budget to the full commission, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Public safety hadn't looked at this, or will they need to look at it?
Well, it's more of a property
It's
management.
property management.
If you so choose, or they require it, but I think just going on to budget.
Boy, that's
I would think
It's
it's
not a security issue, it's more of a property management.
I would think properly,
Yeah,
the
so-
proper avenue would be start here
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I don't, as the mayor said, I don't see this as a security issue. The only problem that could become a security issue if we have a major failure of our systems,
That's true.
then by law, I've got to move our inmates. And that means finding a facility that will take them, and then we pay them their rate for every inmate that we've got in their facility. For example, if we've got a major electrical failure, power goes down and our antiquated backup generator does not come up, which we have done once before. We had to get a tractor trailer in with a generator, mobile, to hook that. If we cannot get that, then I've got to move 900 inmates out of our facility. And that's where the safety and
Or the
security is.
HVAC over the women's
The
pod.
women's pod there.
Demolished.
So that's where it becomes very critical. The other thing I was gonna say is I've got a room that's probably usable portion that we could use, I'm gonna estimate around 1,200 square feet. And as you know, we don't have space out there. There's some things I'd like to do with this room, but I can't because it sits underneath inmates. And because the inmates like to overflow their toilets and everything, guess where all the water goes?
in that room.
It goes into the first floor rooms. So I've got two offices that we're redoing now that they overflow. That room, I don't even know what's in it because it's been done so many times. So here again, this is a thing that hopefully there's some things that would allow us to gain some space, or there's some things we can do with office space that we don't have right now. But I will agree, the water issue, they love to play in it. The toilets are the first things they like to overflow.
Yeah, what else you gonna do there?
The next thing we got is, of course, I'm required to have sprinklers in every one of those. We're using the foolproof that we know about. They still like to knock those things off. So the water is a problem in that building. Huge, huge problem. The other part of it is if we did nothing, I still gotta have a washer. I still gotta have a dryer. So we're gonna be coming and asking for that money because they're at end of life and I'm gonna have to replace them. So there's some big ticket items coming already anyway. So either way, we're gonna have to address them.
So you just couldn't go to Suds and Duds?
Well, we actually, you say that, but we did go Suds and Duds over to the workhouse. And can you imagine taking laundry for 860 inmates at the workhouse and then having to cart it all back? So, no, but I mean, we've done that. It's,
Mr. Chairman, what do we gotta do to get this ball rolling?
I got another question. We know this company is presenting their proposal to us. Bill, do we have to bid this out or what? Because we got other companies that do this. Do we have to bid it?
Energy Services in Tennessee falls under professional
Professional
services.
services.
Okay.
And
So it's not required to go to bid.
aren't you on state contract? State contract too, aren't you?
Yeah.
State, so.
They do so much for the state, the work, and to be honest with you, if I hadn't talked to Montgomery County, I wouldn't have them here. But, you know, I gotta trust the people that's already using them. They've been productive for them, and we've talked, and I'm skeptical. It's like, you're not giving me nothing for free, you know? Where am I gonna be paying this? So, I mean, the thing is, if I ask for $900,000 next year, I'll probably get 900 for the next 5, and whatever we don't spend, we give to them. And that's the way this works.
The way it works, it makes.
Simple.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, I will move to authorize the mayor to enter into contract with Siemens and to authorize a memorandum of understanding of $30,000 termination.
Got a motion? And a second? And a second?
Discussion,
Any
please.
other discussion?
Yes, sir. Is the 30, you use this term, the 30,000 is earnest money. I know it's not, we're not going to write a check, but does that go to purchase? You know, does that contribute to?
No, but it's just a portion of the project development fees.
Okay.
So we can just use the.
The intent is
Yeah.
that it
Yep.
is embedded in the project financing, and it's paid for by savings.
Yes.
Yep.
Do we need to have in this motion, Trey, a caveat that we have the authority to no bid this? We're going on anecdotal communication here.
We may want to let our county attorney address that question before we take it forward, because
To be safe.
I have no problem with it. It sounds like a good plan to me, but as we go forward, budget may not ask the question, but I guarantee you, the night of commission, one of those 21 commissioners is going to ask that question, and so we want to be ready with the answer.
Yeah, we have the state statute, it's
Yeah, we can
in Title
provide
IV,
that.
so we can provide that.
Can you provide?
It basically says energy services are treated as professional services under this statute.
So
So,
you can provide that to the mayor.
yes, we talked about it, I just thought.
Sourcewell. Aren't y'all under Sourcewell? Okay.
And how do we pay you? How do we pay Siemens?
Siemens,
You come up with this project and we finance or whatever, and how do y'all get paid?
Yeah, so once a contract is signed to actually do the work, the funds would, if it's a loan, however you're procured, will go into a construction escrow account, basically. And we would get progress payments based on agreed to progress
Okay.
schedule.
And that'll be laid out
And then
in
at the end of
contract.
construction, we would be fully paid, and then the debt, you would start paying on the debt service out of the savings.
Okay. Any more questions?
I'm sorry, would our county attorney be able to have that information by budget?
Well, I'll tell him he needs to have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tell him you need to have it.
yeah, you need to have it.
is this budget meeting on the 6th or is it a different budget
The mayor's
We can send
meeting's
it
in
over
2 weeks.
meeting? 2 weeks.
On the
It's after the first of the month.
June the 6th, I think that's what I
It's the actual monthly scheduled meeting?
Yeah, so.
Okay, we got so many.
That's the one, that's the one we're gonna send him to, is that one.
They schedule.
I would like, if it's possible, you say you have financing available through Siemens, to offer whatever those terms and conditions are with your proposal to move forward a budget. Because I would like the budget committee to be able, and ultimately the full commission, to be able to see, okay, here's Siemens options if you want to finance the project. Here's if I want to go to Tennessee municipal bond. I think they showed us a rate actually cheaper than Motorola if we wanted to finance over 5, 7, and 10 years on the communication program. Or we just may want to borrow against ourselves and go to the bond market. Members need to see all the options available to us.
1.5 maybe.
Well, we haven't really developed those costs, so we would, that'd be a number we'd come up with at the end, but we could probably.
Yeah, we can, we'll get a letter of interest with an indicative rate based on a project size and the range of what, we think is reasonable, 1.5.
You and I,
Yeah,
you're coming all.
yeah.
We got 2 next week. We got this.
But we got actually 4.
All right,
Okay,
any more questions?
you guys
Thank you.
are confident that this is a tool, an asset.
From what I've seen and talking with them, and then what they have given us, I definitely see it as an asset and a tool. Especially with what we're able to achieve out of this on an aged building, especially with the utilities. I don't see anything happening with utilities except going right out the roof.
Will they broaden their scope once they get out there? And
There's some other things that I would like for them to look at, so, and then we could make a determination whether it should or shouldn't be included.
I see this as a continuation of the life of this building for a number of years. Otherwise, we're going to have to build
Broaden the
probably
scope, though, so.
$110 million new jail, I just see this as a easier path on our taxpayers.
We'll go to Central Magnet School next.
I think an easier path, if we can keep our facility up,
Magnet School.
maybe an easier path would be at some point in the
That's where I went
future,
to
an
school.
addition as opposed to a new jail.
He's older than me, he went to high school.
That would be tremendous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions?
Hey, he said Central Magnet School next, and I said, well, it's old, that's where I went to high school.
Wow,
I
I
said,
went to- I said, don't even
Well,
go
I said,
there.
he's older than I am, he went to high school.
Got any more questions? I call for a question to be voted on, and let's do it by roll call.
And they done with it.
Yeah. That's good.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Commissioner Dodd is on budget, so he's,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
am I right?
Yes, sir.
Aren't you on budget,
Yes,
so
sir.
you'll be able to answer some of these
I
questions.
think so.
And Trey? You on
Is as
budget?
well.
Okay.
With the attorneys,
Paul Johnson too? Well, we got 3 of the budget members right here now.
That's right.
I think Wayne Blair, is Wayne Blair on this committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
And David, though?
And David Gammon.
Virgil.
No, David's on this committee.
David's on this one.
Yeah, not Virgil. David's on this one.
Well, it's hard to keep those gallon boys separate.
Okay, next on the agenda, Lion Bar Library request.
Ready?
Come on.
Come on up. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, may or may not know Ms. Shacklet. Ms. Shacklet, she is the director of Linebaugh Library, which has 3 locations, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Eagleville.
That's now the Rutherford County Library System.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna turn it over to her and let her make the request. She's actually making the request to, they're out of space at their current location here, down at Pacific Plaza. She and her staff have been in the old Clark Maples building. How many?
For a year. We've got 10 people.
10 staff members in there, and she's looking for space. So I told her that she would have to come before the Property Management Committee. She's actually looking for space and has identified the old judicial building. I told her that we're getting ready to turn that over to the PBA, and we're going to start rehabbing that building, and it could be 12. I don't know how long it will take to rehab that building with paint, upgrades of paint, carpet. We've got to do, we're going to have to redo all the bathrooms in there, so all the bathrooms will be shut down because they're all connected in the, by floor. They're all using the same pipes and et cetera, so it will be uninhabited for over a year, I'm sure, as we go through that process. So I'll let her, Ms. Shacklet, make the pitch and turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Great.
As the mayor said, we have been, the city has allowed us to stay in this building. It's the first time that we have taken administration and technical services, which is the department that catalogs the books, processes books and materials that go out to our different branches. And so we were the last kind of system employees left in Linebaugh, and they were sorely out of space. My branch manager was actually in an office cubicle that we created with some office walls. And so when the city, we approached them to see if they had any space to try and see if this worked, since we've never done it this way before. They graciously allowed us to stay until they were ready to turn this property over to the developer that's going to be developing that whole block. And so we got notice a few weeks ago that we would need to be out by mid-June. And so I went back to the city and said, where are we going? And they said, we don't have any space. So I contacted the mayor and said, do y'all have any space? And so the only option was the old judicial building. We would need about half of a floor, about 3,000 square feet for 10 employees. We have made arrangements to move back into Linebaugh, hopefully temporarily, because we knew this renovation was going to have to be done. Not ideal, and we're trying to make as little of a disturbance to their workflow and to the patrons as possible. So we're blocking off, if you've been there, upstairs in the reading room that has the big open ceiling, we're going to block that off with some office panels and put 4 of us up there and technical services in the back, kind of instant amongst everybody else that's back there. So we do have a place we can go temporarily. If we can't find a spot, we will have to make arrangements at Linebaugh to either put things back the way they were, which we don't really want to do. We don't have the money in our budget to rent. We looked into renting, but the cheapest thing we could find is like $20 to $25 a square foot, and nobody wants a lease for less than 3 years. And we don't have $50,000 to $60,000 in our budget. Otherwise, I'd be coming to you going, do you have $60,000? And so we didn't want to do that either. So we have said that, if you would let us use this space, we pay obviously a portion of the utilities. We have our own internet, although our system administrator knows the county, Brian Robertson. Ours is Kevin Robertson. But they have worked together on some other things, and so the issue of internet and firewalls and things like that are not really an issue for that either. So what we would like to request is about half of the second floor for a period of time until either the county needs office space or until we can find another location, hopefully for a minimum of 5 years.
Okay.
Would you be receptive to, if this is approved, you was talking about renting, would you be receptive to reducing your request for your contributions to charity equitable amount, or basically, would you be receptive to that?
Well,
I mean, we're not in the renting business, but
right.
we're in the saving the taxpayer dollars. And
right, and I see where you're coming from.
Is that a stupid question?
No, it's not. It's most certainly not. The problem is we have other issues that we have to fund, and so that's all built into that budget, and that was not. So at this point, in the future, yes, we could probably build something into the budget, but for this next year, we did not build that in.
Okay, so if you got relief on a year, you'd be willing to pick it up in your budget?
We would try to, most certainly.
The operative word is try.
Try. We'd have to see what that amount would be. That
I'm
would
sure
be
that-
my next
I'm
question,
sure
was
that-
how much would that,
I'm
we
sure the
talking
powers
about?
to be would come up with a reasonable fee
and
or
the
charge,
other,
or
the
whatever you
other
call it.
thing that we were willing to do is pay a portion of the paint and carpet for
yes,
that
ma'am.
area as well.
That's only fair.
Because we felt that was fair.
That's a prudent thing to do.
And we have furniture and things that we don't need, and we have office panels to make larger spaces into smaller offices if we need to. So that's, we're not asking for anything. And ideally, we could do the painting ourselves and clean the carpet and be done with it, but we felt like it was more prudent to do the whole building because we're not going to be there forever.
Well, I don't think this is an unreasonable request, in my humble opinion.
Well, and your point is valid too. I would say over this next year is that we come up with what kind of money we're talking about as far as a reimbursement for any kind of rent or whatever we want to call it.
Anybody else got any questions?
Are we comfortable with a 5-year? I know that's arbitrary.
We just didn't want to get somewhere for a year and have to move out again.
Yeah, I hesitate. I want to be careful given
Right,
committing to space where
right,
departments are in need and we're to hold them in check. So
right.
just publicly stating that.
And we know that the first floor is taken and the fourth and fifth floor are taken. Our understanding currently is second and third floor were not, but we didn't need the whole floor, and they wanted to leave that possibility that probation might need some offices upstairs.
And since we last talked, we have a new director coming in to replace Mr. King. And gone back over, and I think based on what he thought, probation was they could make it work on the first floor. Now he's looking at, they may need 1.5 floors. So, it's just on that second and third floor that we have available, we're just going to have to be fluid on it, so as we try to build this thing out, so I've already turned it over at the request of this committee. It went before PBA at their last meeting last week. They have accepted the remodeling, and I was told by Mr. Mankin yesterday that Mr. Johnson, Steve Johnson, the architect that built the new judicial building, has accepted to come back in and assist the PBA from that standpoint. So I'm not ready to commit. We'll try to accommodate the line ball because we're part owners of the line ball. I mean, what did we give you last night? 100,000 in your budget request, up from the 800.
Of course, I don't know where this question's kind of like asking how high is up, but do you anticipate that we wouldn't be in a bind as far as needing that space
Well,
for up to 9 years?
Today, 5 years,
And
I mean,
that's my
it's kinda
fear,
like
that's
how
my
high is
fear
it?
right there.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's my fear.
Yeah.
I'd love to help out when we can, but if a 5-year commitment, we got space needs.
Sure. I think we'll be in a better position to make that commitment as we get closer to the finishing of this project.
And we're not tied to the 5 years. I just don't want to get somewhere for a year and then.
And I totally understand that as well.
That was my only, and so we just kind of thought, well,
But I don't
5
want to get
years
into
is-
year 3 and
Right.
we need, and then I'm forced to go build a new building somewhere on our rent, the old,
Well, I would think in a
Roses.
year or so, we might know if we're looking to have to rent someplace. If
Sure.
it's looking like you're gonna need that space, then we have
Sure.
to build that in our next budget.
okay.
I'm sure there'd be a stipulation somewhere along the way that they'd give you
A
a
certain
time.
time, right.
Sure, and say,
That'll
we
also-
come up and say, you got to be out next week or
Right.
whatever. So
Just 12 or 14 months will give us also opportunity to meet with the city fathers as well as let me get with the mayor and city manager and with the city. And since we are, I think they're on the Civic Plaza, we're 43% participant in the parking garage and all the civic plaza, and they're 50.
I think you own the property under the library and the city owns the building or something like that.
Well, we also
Weird like
own,
that.
no, we don't, what we own is the $350,000 in support piers that we put into the
Ah.
parking garage to build the building
Underneath us, so
on.
we don't fall down.
So where the gazebo is was
Right.
supposed to be the staircase that emptied into the lobby of our 6-story building that
Yeah.
they were going to build.
What was
moved
y'all
into
feel
that.
comfortable with?
Didn't you
Trey?
move
Which
in there?
league?
You got a-
We had
1992.
Oh, 92,
June
I
of
was thinking it was
1992.
92.
92.
Yeah.
And we painted and recarpeted, just did the second time in the 25 years or so that we've
Phil,
been there.
what's your temperature on this?
27.
Then we defer to
27
Trey.
years.
Come on, Trey.
Yeah,
We're trying to stay on top of
27
that.
years,
Yeah, so we're trying to stay on top of
Gonna put the heat on
renovation.
you.
We had to redo the bathrooms last year. So, yeah, not, inexpensive, but it's something you have to do to keep those buildings up.
Are you familiar with our inventory of buildings? Do we have any other space, 3,000 square feet anywhere? I'm just curious.
I don't think so.
We're occupying everything.
Space is at a premium.
Right,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, because
We did have a list out.
we're not tied to that. If
We
we've
are,
got something
yeah.
else, we're just, the city's looking too, but they don't have anything either, so.
Who's backfilling Brian's space downstairs? That's probably 500 square feet. You're looking for
Cram us in there.
She needs
Yeah.
3,000 square.
Who's backfilling? Is Goldstein's anything moving out of there?
No.
You're staying,
Yeah.
Alan's staying?
Let me ask you this, Ms. Shackler. So y'all are being asked to leave in the middle of June,
We're leaving in 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Do you have a plan B? Or is this kind of,
We will just have to
We're just gonna make it
redo,
work. and-
yeah, we'll just have to make
Where
it
they're
work. We'll have to
moving back to
redo
the
line ball
line
again
ball.
and put up office panels and.
What about
create
the
some
old
space.
city police in their
There,
parking space?
I actually asked about that in the city buildings and codes building, and they're planning on tearing that down. I was told that they were actually negotiating now to get that torn down.
Torn
and
down plus the annex buildings,
They're going to tear all that down.
all of that.
put it
Although
on the
my,
market.
Put it
on
back
the
on
private
the
fire
tax
marshals
roll.
told us if we really wanted to share the annex building with the squirrels and the rats. And
Did you say you'd pass on that?
yeah, well, I kind of hesitated, but, depends on what kind of qualifications they have.
But you've got an alternative right now.
Yes,
to-
it's not ideal, but it will work.
It'll work.
We can make it work till,
The time span to get this where
Yes.
you can.
yes.
Well, I wonder if we just keep you posted where PBA is at and our plans for space over there, maybe send you out a report or something periodically.
Yeah, she's close enough. We can
Yeah.
get her.
We can
Yeah.
get-
I think the thing is just knowing, if we're gonna move back there, if it's gonna have to be a permanent move, we need to
Sure.
redo our plans of where we're putting everything. And we've hired a moving company and just to move stuff into storage because we can't take everything we have in this building back to Limeball. So we're gonna have to make adjustments, and so
Gotcha.
we've made arrangements to put probably half or more of our furniture in storage until we find another place. So if we're going back to Limeball permanently, then we don't need that storage unit. We'll have to.
Do we need a tentative approval or anything for this, Mayor? Just
No, I think Mr. Mankin, he's going to be now working with the PBA, and he'll be coming back to this committee on a monthly basis to give you a report of where our progress once it goes out to bid. And so we'll have a fairly good idea, and then we can go down to Ms.
And I
Shackler.
have not told my staff anything other than I'm working on trying to
Sure.
find us a place, and that I'd let them know as soon as I know something. But for right now, they have to go back to Limeball and make it work.
Does this alleviate a little bit of your frustration?
Yes.
Well, we've accomplished something, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know, for
very
27
much.
years, for you to come to us, it's been 27 years to come to us. That's kind of a record.
And
in government.
truly, that building was never built big enough to begin with.
And with the population, the growth of the
Yes.
population
Yes.
has tripled.
And if you go in there now, we have actually taken where adult fiction was and moved it upstairs with nonfiction, so all the adult materials are upstairs. And we put the children's area in that back so that programming, because in the summer, we will have no less than 300 to 400 children back there for a program at one time. And you put
So-
that many kids in a building.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Shackles, if we enter into the agreement with the same relationship and build a new community library out at Blackman, we're going to build a new building for Ms. Kroll and the THP, and will that relieve any?
If you could put a second floor, we could take half of that floor and then put meeting rooms, which are at a premium now, and a computer lab. But because of the number of people in that Blackman area, if we're looking at, say, a 20,000 square foot or just under 20,000 square foot building, that's not big enough to put us back in there and have the services that are needed for a community that size. Because it's basically a community out there, because there's, 41,000 people out there.
It's a city of its own.
And I know what we draw in at Line Ball for programming, and I know what Smyrna's pulling in just in their area. And so, you know, if you had the bottom floor for collections and youth services and, you know, story times and that kind of stuff, and then put a computer lab, which are high premium items in libraries now, and some meeting spaces, and then we could take the other half.
Okay.
So you basically would build a second floor,
Sure.
which would really, our meeting rooms at the technology center are just,
Could on a temporary basis, we could use one of the elementary schools for your storytelling for the summer?
possibly, yeah, for the
the summer.
summertime,
Not permanent, but
not permanent,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
during this crisis.
And right now, the way they've rearranged Line Ball, we've got a much larger space for this programming area, and so it's been really nice, and parents will love it. So,
I know the kids in Laverne love it.
oh yeah. Unfortunately, they're not part of our system. We've asked them to be, but
Then when
they've
Highland
chosen
Real-
not to. No, because they are what's called an independent library, so they don't have the services that Stones River Regional provides.
Okay, is there any more discussion that we need?
Thank you.
If not, we will keep you
Okay.
informed.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Get me back on.
Okay, next on the agenda, license agreement for renting space at number 1 South Public Square, room 215.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman,
He's a tech guy, you know.
TDEC, Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, I think is this a renewal?
Yes, it's a renewal.
It's a renewal.
Yeah.
They're
Every
currently
year.
there, so it's just basically a renewal to rent them that space. Their term had expired.
It's just a housekeeping measure.
Well, yeah, I believe that's basically our septic tank.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a permitting office.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we do it every year, so. I hear a motion to that effect.
Same price, same circumstance?
Yes, sir.
Just,
Yeah,
motion to
haven't
approve.
changed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, any more discussion? If not, call the roll.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Do you want this to go to budget or no?
We can send it to budget for information on it. We got 3 members of budget right here now, so. Yeah,
It's not
money
exchanging,
involved.
any money, is it?
Could it be a consent agenda item? I don't know.
Yeah.
I shouldn't speak.
Yeah, it could be.
I think it could be.
It could
Well, I mean, I
be.
don't know what.
No, I think it could go
It
on
could
consent.
be a consent
I
agenda.
would rather our chairman.
Yeah.
It could be a consent agenda.
Yeah, I agree.
It could be.
Send it to budget or?
It's not consent agenda.
They're sugar-free.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, report on renovation of old judicial building.
Yes, sir, I think I just kind of
Yeah,
give
we-
you a briefing on that, where we are. We turned it over to the PBA. As you know, Ben is going to become the new Jerry Preston, working with the PBA. And keep Jerry's wife in your prayers. Ben just told us tonight that she just found out she had cancer. And so, but as I said briefly, we're still moving forward on PBA. We'll put this out to bid. Steve Johnson with the architectural firm that did the new judicial building is going to come in. It'll be his stamp, architect stamp that will go on. Hopefully, when we put this thing out to bid, I think you and Mike Picklesheimer, chairman of PBA, working on the bid specs. What's our target date?
Well, since we hadn't really had an architect yet, I think it's still.
And that just happened today.
Right.
Okay.
We just found that. I just found that out yesterday.
So he'll come back in and look at what we're wanting to do on the 4th and 5th floor for IT, and for probation on the 1st and maybe 2nd floor.
Yes, sir.
And
That's correct.
putting everything into all the bathrooms, ADA accessible, et cetera. We'll go from there.
Okay, any questions from the committee members? Okay, if not, move on to parking study update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to yield to Deputy to the Mayor, Sandlin. He'll give us an update very quickly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mayor, Commissioners. Basically, last month, you asked that I would get in touch with our Highway Road Superintendent and meet out there at 319 to take a look at the parking and to see what we could do. We met. Our schedules conflicted there for 2 or 3 days, but we did meet and went over actually what we had as far as employees. I think it was like 78, so we counted 80 spaces out, and basically the outer perimeter of what we had talked about in that parking area to park all the employees. He's actually in the process of doing some signage saying employees only. Going to be doing 8 signs for the different sections and the islands that are in there to segregate the employee parking. And then we're also doing, if you've seen the placards on the parking spaces out around the square and around about where you have 1 hour parking or handicap parking, that's a 4-inch by 12-inch placard. We're going to order those. He couldn't do those himself, but his jobber can do those, and so he's getting a price back on those, and we're going to put those on the actual curbs themselves in front of all the parking spaces, and it'll just say employee parking or employees only. So that should take care of the 80 spaces marked, and also with I think the security that's already in place, and they just redid that here last month with a less fee. So we should basically, that's about all we can do at this point. And then we're going to, it was brought up last night, I think again, we're going to look at the health department also to see what we can do over there. Employees back there, it's a little different deal, and I don't want to mix the two at all, but just kind of update you on it. The employees kind of park in the back, and then the folks coming to the health department park in front because they can't get in the doors in the back. They have to park in front, so that's going to be a little different thing there, but we're going to look at it as well. So,
Security guard.
Lisa, you have, and Heather, y'all have 78 employees? And I've heard you say,
well, through the
they're
3
never, everybody's never there. It's always less than? Do you think
It's on
we
a
want to,
rare occasion that everybody is there.
do we want to give the client any more spaces? Do you want to keep 75 or 70, or do you, you're more than your employees, and your employees are rarely all there? Just curious if it,
well, you had 78, and you're going to hire 1 or 2 either within, property assessor's office or register deeds office or clerk's office. So, we just segregated 80, to put on there.
do your clients need any spaces? Will that generate enough spaces for the taxpayer who's using your services?
I feel comfortable with the 80. I do. The turnover rate of the people that come into the county clerk's office is it's on a more timely
Pretty quick,
manner.
okay.
Now, at the end of the month or the first of the month, most of the time I'm gonna have a complete staff. We have to have them there to accommodate everyone coming through. I can't speak for Heather's office or for Rob's, but for my office, normally I have a full staff at the end of the month or the first of the month. We have to all be there. But
You have, what, 40 employees, Lisa?
including me.
Including you 40?
If y'all good, that's good. I just know you,
Yeah.
I do, I feel
I don't want to
comfortable.
micromanage any more than that. I just want to make sure what your customers are.
Well, also within a year or a smidge after a year, you know, we're looking at the opening then probably of the Blackman site. So that's going to, I think, draw down. It's going to be a whole new ballgame out there. So, you know, you're talking about a new full office. So it's going to draw down, I think, this out here. And we may have to scale down, you know, the employee parking at that point because they might be using it over there.
Well, once the satellite office is open, it'll be modeled more after the Smyrna office. It won't be the full scale that I have in the Murfreesboro.
Right.
It'll be modeled after what I already have in Smyrna. I personally feel that we're at the point where we're playing catch up. So at the rate that we're growing, I feel like all the offices are going to continue to be busy, and I don't know that we'll see a real decrease at the Murfreesboro office. We may see a decrease in the dealers, car dealerships that come through because so many of them are located out in the Blackman area.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know what I'm talking about.
Steve.
But as far as traffic, as far as citizens coming through, I don't know that I'm gonna see a big decrease in that because I do feel like at the rate that we're growing, it's gonna be busy in all three.
What does the Smyrna office, what does the home office do that the satellite office do not do?
We don't do business tax
Right.
and probate, and that's a lot,
Yes.
so.
And how many parking spaces is left for the customers?
It's roughly, I think it's like 60 left, I think, or something like that. It's 120 something, so you had another, right at, no, 138 I believe is what it was. So I didn't bring that with me, but I
That's
believe it was
okay.
138, so.
That's why I think it's gonna be important to still continue with the parking lot, what do you want to call them, guard or security, to make sure, as long as it's our clients, they're in and out. If
Right.
it becomes the court's
right, sure.
clients, then they tie up a space where 5 or 6 people could use that same space.
Yeah.
So it's gotta be a combination of the employee parking segregation, which is great, but we've got to continue with the other as well. Otherwise, we will run into a problem.
Oh, yeah. That is continued, by the way. And
Yeah.
it's going to be a hired security guard, the same ones that are doing our probation area. So they're like $20.33 an hour compared to what we were paying. And that will start actually June 3rd or whatever that, week after next. So, because theirs ended in their money line item and this is starting up then.
Okay, any more discussion? Sound like we're on the right track. And,
Much better. Thank
hope
you.
so. Need to continue on. I think the mayor, if I'm not wrong, I think you mentioned that you had included some money in the next year budget, maybe on security for that area.
Yes, sir. Ms. Proud, of course, she had some money, and she implemented that by hiring a deputy, that was, not working regular shifts, so they were able to bring them in. I think you run out, your funds run out at the end of the month. Is that correct, next week? I've implemented, I've requested in my budget we were able to get all due respect to the sheriff's department, but what was happening is that some of the other guys were wanting to get the extra overtime pay, and so they were pulling rank on the other ones. So we had to charge them based on their rank, and we were up to $40-something an hour.
I think it's like 47 something.
Yeah, and so Deputy Mayor Sandlin contacted the company that we're using down the street on West Main Street for probation. They are a security company. They are, I think they carry a weapon, et cetera. So we were able to contract them for how much?
$20.33.
$20.33 an hour, and they were happy to get that. So I'll be putting that request into my budget for, so it's a savings of $20-something an hour, and it'll be full-time from now on. It just, I think just the presence of somebody with a gun on her, it makes a difference in that parking lot. I don't know why.
It does, and it actually, with having security in the parking lot, if there was a need inside as well, there's someone right there on site.
Sure.
You may be aware, there was a gentleman coming through the parking lot and was having a heart attack, and the police officer called the 911, and they were there, and so having someone in that parking lot is serving in so many different ways. It's just proven to be what we needed down there.
Good move.
Good move. Okay, any more questions on the parking lot? If not, what about an update on archive building?
Mr. Lowell is here. John, you want to come up and give us an update, what you know, and I'll throw in what I know.
No more than that.
And then we'll know nothing.
No, you know nothing.
I do have firmer numbers on the shelving bid that we have not presented to budget yet, but they're fresh off the press. So we're looking at about $152,447.82 if you want to get specific.
I think we talked about that last night, that we had not received that firm number, but I think Lisa has already estimated that into our numbers for the budget, because we knew that we were going to have to buy new shelving for the area. You just can't stack them on top of each other.
Exactly. And this is on the low end. It's shelving that'll work. I think it'll work for a long time. We talked about, and it's not compact shelving. I keep calling compact shelving the Cadillac. The Cadillac is going to be $640,000, so I am very comfortable at 154.
I'm glad that you bought the Yugo.
Yeah, so Chevy Chevette maybe, I'm not sure, somewhere down there.
Most people don't remember Yugo.
Yeah, you can make up a little bit with that by having the fake windows, right?
That's right. That's right.
Sure.
Okay, well, how's the time frame on that project going?
It was my understanding that in talking to Bart Klein last week, that everything's ready to go. City council's, they signed off on it, planning?
Yeah, they're doing their final revision. I think it's next week, and then we're ready to bid, get it going.
Possibly first week of June.
Yeah,
Next
yeah,
week, first week of June.
First week of June, I think, is a timeline. There was
Yeah.
a little hold up. They wanted it to look fancy, and so they agreed because on the second story closest to Ben's barn, they thought that when you get coming down Memorial, you might see it, and they wanted it to look too ugly and wanted windows, and of course windows don't do well for archives.
Right.
Sunlight makes paper look bad, so they agreed to let us put fake windows on the second floor.
Okay, great.
So it'll have shutters and look like a window. Okay.
You call that the bureaucracy?
City versus county.
Yeah, city versus county, okay.
I commend Bart and his group, though. I mean, they're trying to keep the budget as low as possible, and it's still a good-looking addition.
Good looking building. And
It looks good.
They put a pitched roof on it, I believe. Is it gable?
I think we're back to flat.
Or back flat?
Ish. Or it pit, not, it's not. It's not
got a
pitch, it's pitch.
It's got a slant.
Yeah, there you go. But it's away from the church steeple look, so.
Okay, so we're moving on that. This sounds good. Any more questions on
So,
the archive?
well, the main thing is approval of the shelving. Or is that our?
Are you presenting that to us tonight?
Am I presenting that to us tonight?
I don't want to get called.
If that's a solid number,
That's a solid number.
If
We
that's
need to-
But I thought we were locking that in.
I think Lisa has already captured some number to cover this. You know, I think she's higher than that, but
We can go ahead and vote on it tonight and send it to budget.
yes,
That's what you want.
that's what I'm requesting.
Okay. Do I have a motion to that effect? Got a motion there, a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, any more discussion on the shelving at the archive building?
And we won't put that in, of course, until it's built.
Oh, I know that. If not, call roll.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Knapp?
Yes. I'll tell you what, I love having 3 members of the budget committee.
You like that?
That's what the best committee is.
You think it's a slam dunk?
Yeah. Okay, next.
Unless we change our mind.
Yeah, I know it.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is an update on the historic courthouse renovation.
Yes, sir. We're pretty close to going out to bid on this. Steve, you remember?
Well, they had a death in the organization there, and
Yeah, their number one
so they put them
guy.
back, I think, 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's pushed it back 2 weeks because.
1st of June again.
Yeah, so we're.
Klein Sweeney's had us.
Yeah, Klein Sweeney, his number one guy that is project manager, had a death in the family, so he sent us a text. But also, we were authorized, we went in and authorized, he won this sound guy out of California won $1,500, and I said I'm only gonna give him $1,000. You know, because he was in Knoxville, and I said, well, he can drive to here because it's cheaper for him to fly out of Nashville than it is Knoxville, so I'll give him $1,000. He's a sound person who's going to come in and look at the baffling of whatever he can do to cut down the noise that we're having since the installation of this new HVAC unit. It's actually right behind your head, Commissioner Dodd. I believe that's where I was told that it is, right behind that wall. And we're having difficulty, Brian, okay, we're having difficulty with the sound when it's projected. Of course, it's easy to hear when the fan's not running, you know, but it's not, when the camera's on, people are having difficulty hearing. So we're going to try to figure out how we can baffle that down to still have the same wind speed, but less noise. And that's beyond his capability, so he knew the sound guy. So anyway, but otherwise everything's ready to go to bid, and we'll get that cranked up. I hope we get enough bidders. I don't know who wants to paint those mortar joints on once they paint the courthouse on the outside. That's a tedious job. I remember Commissioner Gammon said that he did it the last time, he and another guy, you know, with a little bitty paintbrush. I would, anyway, but we're ready to go to bid on that, and that's the update.
Is the farmer's market going to be able to occur here?
Yes, yes, absolutely, good. Absolutely, no conflict on that, and they'll put up whatever scaffolding or whatever and put tape around it and make sure nobody falls or gets hurt or anything like that. But right now, we're not going to be out in the middle of the inner loop where farmer's market occurs. And we should have the project done by September, landscaping, everything.
It looks better since the trees are cut, shrubs.
It really does. We've had so many compliments on that, and getting a lot more tourism, matter of fact, down the stairs. A lot of people are coming in, and we put a little register book out there, and we're getting people from Ontario, Canada, from California, Texas, just coming in, curious, you know, looking around. So when they sign the register book, we send them that little postcard picture of the courthouse.
That's good. Oh, that's nice.
And thank them for stopping by, you know, and visiting Rutherford County, and That's
That
it.
makes sense. The books, I'll give you a postcard.
Laura, we'll send you one, I promise
Would
you.
you tuck his picture in the envelope you sent him? Trey says, hey.
Trey says that?
Have you got any 8th grade classroom pictures?
Yeah.
You know, in some of our marketing, maybe with the courthouse and so forth, we could have a senior citizen come out here and at certain times and tell stories.
That's a great idea.
Historian to come and tell stories, and in our marketing, we say, this is available at such and such times.
Well, that's what you do when you retire.
When I quit here, okay, I can do that.
Okay, that sounds
great.
good. All right, next on the agenda, checklist for real estate.
Yes, sir, I've got
transactions.
copies for everyone. Becky. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Steve got Vicky to blow this up, so it's easier reading than what it was, so I like it. Print font's bigger on this. But basically, we revised this. We had Mr. Tabasi and our county attorney to check it over. Basically, this is just doing and enforcing what was done back in 98, 99, I don't remember when we did it, but I know Mrs. Allen was the county mayor. This was a checklist before we buy property, any property in the county, especially for schools, that there has to be a checkoff list. I think there was this evolved out of the discussion of the last two pieces of property in Christiana and Walter Hill, that, you know, when our road superintendent came into the meeting and they said, well, have you contacted the road superintendent about this piece of property in Christiana? And he goes, no. And then now the responsibility of improving those county roads has fallen in his lap. So this is basically a checkoff list of, is there gas? Is there, you know, they sign off on it, the county engineer. You all weren't being consulted about schools, right? Correct. So this puts it back, and the responsibility for us working, instead of in separate silos, we're all working together to make sure that we don't get caught having to spend twice as much money. If it's not feasible, then they may not check off on it, you know? It's because the school board needs it. So it's just it's a good management tool. So I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you want to, it was done years ago. You may want to implement this, do a vote, and then we send it to the schools, and we'll make sure that before we, out of the mayor's office, before we purchase any property, we'll do the same, but mainly for school property. So.
Mayor, I think it was done in '02.
Okay.
And we went by this, as some of the senior commissioners may remember, and then I don't know how we got off of it and didn't do it, but it also went through planning. Of course, the engineer had comments on it, as well as our attorney, and so the school board would have this list. They would have to, all these things would have to be checked off. Some of them won't apply, of course. Yeah. If we're not buying a building, we're just buying land, then those parts are checked off. And then also there was, actually come through the budget at one point, that you would put a tag on it as far as where's the money coming from on buying this.
Yeah.
So.
A physical note, I
A
think.
physical note that you'd have to have attached to it. So we redid that, as well as it did say county executive, and we changed that to mayor. So there's some fine tweaking on it. Most of it was from what was done back in '02. So just some revisions to get us up to date. I think it's a pretty good little checklist.
How was it executed? There's no signature blocks. Is there an attachment that goes to it? Curious.
It went through planning, like I said, and
I think it says under comments, add attachments as needed. So whatever that agreement would be attached to this checklist. Doug, you
Part of
remember?
this come out of the school board taking land it was given and selling it and using it for other places that they wanted to use. Because I know Laverne had land given for and offered to them for schools, and they had a lot of complaints, it's in the flight line, there's a drainage ditch or whatever, then they'll turn around and buy one somewhere else that had the same thing.
Yeah, and I think it's a great tool.
It is.
To-
That's why some of this come
The
about.
school board will contact our county engineer, you know, and before it goes to planning, and it's kind of like in the private sector, the same kind of checklist for a developer who wants to do a subdivision.
Due diligence.
Yeah, it's just going through the proper.
And it says the attorney's closing file, he'll keep this, but
Yeah.
I just don't see any components to execute it. It says this will be executed, and a copy of this document. This document will be fully executed. I just don't see. y'all
Right,
can deal with that.
I think if it's necessary, I think those are things that can be added in now.
Just
The
a page
original
with a
that-
signature.
Right, the original that we received, I don't think had it either.
Okay.
The original document, I don't think existed anywhere digitally. So it was recreated by our legal assistant in our office, and she emailed it to me, and that's when we started looking it over. Originally it was broken down, just the county executive at the time, it was the terminology used, but then it was county engineer and the county attorney. Well, a lot of the issues that were in, like engineering, I mean, some of them weren't engineering related necessarily, they were really more building code, so we broke it down into building code specific issues, planning specific, engineering specific, roads and things like that. And that's when I got Mike involved as county engineer, I got Tanya Bell, our coast director, involved for her to look at it. Greg Brooks, our highway superintendent, also looked at it, and of course our attorney looked at it too, just to see. And so, as the discussion had, this is really, I don't necessarily know if it was meant to be something that we executed. It was really more of a checklist for due diligence, for us to look at it, okay, before we sign off on the documentation that's needed for this, have these issues been looked at? And if there are issues, what are they? And that's where these comment blocks
I
are.
think it's a great tool. I'm shocked that we didn't have, we're sitting here assuming that the 100 acres we bought at Tan Oaks Farms had some of these items done, and obviously they weren't.
Yeah.
So it's a good tool, but I think it needs to be a component of the contract. So
Why don't
perhaps we
you,
can make that.
Yeah, why don't you make that in the motion, that where you implement this?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that this real estate checklist be a mandatory component of a purchase sale agreement for county
All county
purchases of real property.
property. Real property, yeah, that sounds good.
Second.
With a execution?
I said be a component of the contract, so.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Any more discussion? So, are we gonna pass it and then send a copy to the school board, or we
Yes,
gonna
sir.
ask the school board for their input? If they got
And just
any
for
input?
informational too, I've mentioned this to Mr. Lee, that what we did have, and we're in the works of updating, and he said it'd be more than welcomed. So,
Okay. Good.
Okay, I think we pass it and send it on to them, let them know that before they go looking for another piece of property, they need to be doing this.
Or it goes through
Well,
the
that-
county attorney maybe has to
That's,
give it to them. I don't
for a
know.
while,
I don't know what kind of
school
contracts
board
we
owned
use. so.
on the property, and then we took it back over.
That's correct.
And this, I think, went in effect about that time.
Yeah, I think you're right. We started on the property.
And the reason is the way they was doing, way they were doing.
I'm making it part of the
I
contract. I've never seen
remember
the
very
contract.
well.
So how do we make sure?
I went to
make that
one
motion
groundbreaking
Exactly.
where it's supposed to have had, we bought the property for the school, and this was just one day. I went, Dr. Bullen and I jumped in our vehicles to go to the groundbreaking, and found out they moved and bought the property about 3 miles down the road.
Y'all went the wrong place, huh?
That was overnight.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I want to clarify your motion.
Please do, because I'm not sure.
You said, please do.
The real estate checklist to be a mandatory component of all county purchases of real property.
Purchase and sale agreements. To be a component of all county purchase and sale agreements.
I think that's a good, for all of them,
Oh, yeah, not just school.
not just school board, then they
Yeah,
can sell
yeah,
between,
right. Without that one.
we come in on them.
real estate checklist to be a mandatory component of all county purchase and sale agreements of real property.
Purchase and sale agreements, period.
Okay.
Okay.
You good with that, Carol?
Do we need to send it on to the full commission or?
I think it'd be good just to let them know what we're doing, because they were. they'll
And
know
get some
that
input on.
Property management is doing their due diligence and protecting everyone. I'd recommend it.
I believe we had a resolution that adopted it back in the day.
We can pull that out.
I think.
If it's not digital, we're not gonna find it.
Oh, no, Vicky.
I'm kidding.
Vicky may find
Vicky
it.
might find something.
Would be nice if we could pull it out, we can,
Yeah, if we do.
yeah.
You know, you want to do a resolution?
Yeah, we could, but if you can pull that old one out, then we could just
I'm sure we got
reference
it
back to it.
in our archives somewhere.
We can,
It's probably in the county.
we can update. This is to update
This is an update.
Yeah.
what we've had in
Good.
the
We'll find it
past.
for the full commission.
Sure, we'll find it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Okay, next on the agenda is update on renting office space at new office building on Fortress Boulevard.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I didn't bring it tonight, but I have you gave me permission to negotiate and get the MOU. The city attorney he has sent that to Nick Christensen, our county attorney, from the city, leasing it. They're tweaking it a little bit, but it's basically simple. That's it right there. Okay.
Is it going to be changed?
Yeah, he's changing it just a tad, but it's, in essence, we won't vote on that tonight. But it's $1 a year for 50 years, then a 50-year renewal. I think they just wanted to tweak it a little bit. And then as soon as he gets that, I was in touch with the Assistant Commissioner, Terry Ash, today. When Nick contacted them yesterday, he talked to Mr. Hutto, one of the attorneys for Department of Safety.
Right.
Roger sent it to one of the assistant commissioners for Department of Safety, and then it went on down to what they call STREAM. STREAM is a department under General Services. And so they're working on that MOU lease agreement, because basically we'll be leasing for $1 a year from the city for that property, and then we will be subleasing to the Department of Safety for their square footage of the co-locating building between Mrs. Kroll and Department of Safety. So as soon as that's done, they're ready to turn it over. Mr. Klein, Bart Klein, the Klein Sweeney, he's already working with the city. I think they're planning, and everybody else, they're good to go as far as the architect on it. So we should have that ready to go by the end of next month.
Okay, good.
Okay? Put it out to bid.
I don't see a 50-year renewal, but it's in draft form.
Yeah.
And I don't see where it gives us the right to lease it. It
That's
doesn't.
what that's what they're working on, is for the subleasing. We should be able to do
It says
that.
we can use it, but it doesn't say we can lease it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I
I want
wanted
to be real clear on that.
I wanted the terminology to where we can sublease it. And my deal was, and Commissioner Johnson was, that he said, well, don't stick it to us because we're the state. And I said, well, be fair. We'll charge them whatever the going Class A rental rate is. They're renting out here on Middle Tennessee Boulevard today, and that's when he shook my hand. And I trust Commissioner Long that we'll be fair with him and charge him whatever the Class A rental rate is in Rutherford County.
They won't have any problem with it, I guarantee you that.
No.
Okay,
Okay, that's it.
We're down to any other business, and first, under any other business, is talking about a meeting date in June. We need to set one. And we're looking at maybe June the 18th. Any committee members may I have
But you said
anything
you'd have something to present,
On what?
on the date?
that we needed another property management meeting, you'd have something to present next month. Because the commission,
She didn't tell you what it was? I think we talked about it, but there's been a lot of water over the dam since this morning.
From, is it presenting the bids for these two that we just talked about? Because they're going to be bid first of June, then we get those back in 2 weeks, and then we can present them. But we can do that.
We got the budget hearing on the 17th, haven't we?
well, you have the normal, the regular commission's the 13th. On the 17th, you have a public hearing. Budget meets Wednesday, the 19th, and then your commission meeting to approve the budget is the 26th.
Bear with me just a minute, Mr. Chairman. Steve's gonna call Vicki.
Okay, that's fine. I think we're not adding an extra meeting, we're just moving our regular meeting down a week.
Right.
Before, it's not adding a meeting, it's just moving it.
Well, it's just, you're looking at 5 days after you meet.
I think it was, that conversation this morning, I believe it was to accommodate the two attorneys getting their stuff.
I thought it was on the MOUs, but she didn't say.
I'm almost sure it's getting those MOUs back properly.
Okay.
And do you want it to come back to that meeting?
Committee members, do you want the MOUs to come back here or go on to,
I think everybody understands
I
what.
don't think it'd be necessary.
What the, I think
well, with
everybody
three people on budget, I feel confident if it goes.
It's basically a generic.
Right.
Yeah, it's just them tweaking it.
Sure. I mean,
It's
pretty straightforward.
That'll save us another month of putting it out to bid.
And this is, which MOU?
The one between
The state?
the state and us.
I don't see no
I don't see
reason.
any need. I'm comfortable.
We've already discussed what we basically need in it.
I don't think we need to be, as long as we see it as some, that
Right.
full commission, is that
Full
what you
commission,
suggested?
yeah, all that there.
Full commission would be fine.
Okay. All right, I'll work on that premise. And instead of having to come back, there'll be no need for that. Then,
Okay, we'll
additional
cancel
meeting.
that.
When is our June meeting? Do you know?
Well, maybe that's our.
Our June meeting,
Wait a minute.
13th, 12th, 13th.
Well,
County commission's the 13th.
that's the regular one.
Then we got a call
you
meeting
have,
for,
Our budget,
property management would typically be the 27th, which is the day after your commission to approve the budget. And you won't have another commission until August.
Yeah, that's why I was starting to panic, because I didn't want to wait till August. If we get those MOUs done, then PBA can go ahead and put it out to bid.
do we need a meeting?
Do we need a meeting in June?
That's what I'm asking.
I don't know, do we?
Well,
We might want to have a date set just if
could,
something comes up.
if you all feel comfortable in allowing our attorneys to work that out, and then I can send that language to you electronically, we wouldn't need to have a meeting. You know?
I don't see the need in bringing it back to this committee.
I don't need.
Because, like I said, it's basically,
Because I think you know what,
If there's no major changes
no.
that come out of the attorneys, then I would say
Well,
just.
why don't we do this? Why don't we grab a date? If we need it, we got it. If we
No,
don't,
we
we'll
cancel
cancel.
Do we meet in July?
No,
No.
That's
August
1
is our
month.
next
Yeah,
session.
that's 1 month out of the year that we have no meeting.
No meetings, because everybody takes off.
But we may be
Well, you would
postponing
meet,
June as well.
Yeah.
you would meet July the 25th, but that's in anticipation of your August commission.
Let's see. If we have anything to present to the commission.
so we tentatively schedule a June meeting, but we always cancel it, correct?
You don't have a commission meeting in July
Correct.
because you have 2 in June.
Okay.
So sometimes you have 2. Typically, you just have 1 meeting in July, and you don't need the one at the end of the month.
What do we need one in June for? Nothing.
Well, it's at the end of June, I'm sorry if I said July. It's
In the June, that's the full commission meeting
to approve the budget.
to approve the budget, what we have in daytime. We don't have a property management meeting scheduled.
Just let me know if we have one, if we don't.
You know,
I'm
Does
sure.
anybody meet on the
I won't.
20th?
They are not.
You want a tentative schedule the 20th?
Well, I'm just saying, if you have to call a meeting, then maybe we can agree on the 20th.
What I would like to do is just go ahead and grab that date before some other committee jump in there, and I can have it already scheduled. If we need it, fine. If we don't,
sure.
cancel.
It has to be advertised, doesn't it?
Yeah, we'll advertise.
Yeah, we have to advertise.
Yeah, we'll do that.
And it's hard to have meetings so close to the commission because you have certain
Yeah.
things that have to be done.
Are we meeting July 25th?
No.
Probably not, but Rhonda has not canceled that meeting.
Do the committee want to grab the 20th?
Let's go ahead and grab the 20th,
Yeah.
and then you'll send out notice if we're going to have a meeting or not.
Okay, got that? Okay, I don't think we need no vote on it. Okay,
Hopefully we don't have to be there. I'm so tired.
on the other thing to come up on the other business is the old parking garage that you were supposed to.
Who's going to decide if you need it or not? Are you going to let the mayor decide if you need a meeting or?
We'll decide.
Sure, sure.
We'll follow our proper.
Chairman and I talk frequently.
Yeah, we, yeah, I'll let you know now that when I schedule a meeting, we do have both agreement on the meetings. And we go over the agenda, and if anybody want to add something, they can always call me. I have no problem in talking to the mayor. Yeah, he'll vouch for that. Okay, but, on any other business is, the old parking garage, what we discussed.
I was unable to get hold of the,
That's fine. I just want to bring the committee, maybe give them some insight of what's going on with the old parking garage.
yeah, Commissioner, Chairman McAdoo called me today, then he had heard at church that for whatever reason, the city's planning on not allowing people to park in there when?
After May the 30th, then.
Yeah, they posted signs all throughout the garage.
What are they doing?
No parking over 24 hours.
Over 24 hours.
Yeah, then you'd be subject to being towed after that. That's what the sign
okay.
said.
And also, they are restriping several of the parking stalls for ADA, the number of ADA spots they're supposed to have.
I didn't know what it was for.
There are also sprinkler system, you know, Mayor, that they told you about.
They did. Their sprinkler system, it was
Having some
leaking.
pipes rusting through, and they're gonna have to
They're gonna
replace
have
the
to redo all
sprinklers,
those.
fire sprinklers.
Thing's a mess.
Well, maybe we just need,
That's what I'm doing.
That's for
Pardon me?
sure.
maybe you can still get together with them and
Yeah, I'll
go over what they're doing, because we own half of it or whatever, but if the city is putting out this information or they doing this, see, they're gonna be looking at, the taxpayers gonna be looking at, no, the county and city is doing this, and we hadn't had no
Well,
input in it,
and
no
also,
whatsoever.
when you brought it to my attention, it worried me that they're gonna go ahead and do the striping, the sprinkler system and everything else, and send me a bill for my 43%. And I don't know anything about it. You know,
That's true.
You know,
I thought,
that's what bothered me
Yeah.
is if I own 43%, you need to be talking to your partner.
right, so I think the mayor should follow up with them on that, and we get a detailed report brought back to us, what they're doing. And then I heard that there is some type of written agreement floating somewhere, I can't remember it, that we signed off our rights for them to, call, for the policy to be called by the city. I can't remember that.
I don't either. I just got a bill today, I just signed off on it today for our quarterly payment. One was 43% of 13,000 and 43% of 51,000. You know, where we pay for the lights, we pay for the sweeper, which hadn't been swept in 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
You know.
True. I think we need to get more involved with that old parking garage and knowing what's going on.
I agree. We have neglected it and we haven't taken care of our own property.
Right. So I want the committee to be aware of what's going on down there, so you'll know if anybody asks you. But you know what we're trying to do to get back involved and take care of that old garage.
Yes, sir. One last thing, Mr. Chairman, if you're through, I just got a text from Brian Roberts, and Brian this is a good idea, and I'll follow up if the committee wants me to. It says we need to make the room 205, which is here, make room 205 a 205 calendar to be electronic, so that everyone can see it.
Right.
Vicki will be in charge. It's kind of like, you know, you want to reserve a conference room, at least everybody can go to that app electronically and see who's in there on one night, and et cetera. So I think that's a great idea.
Oh, I like that.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Any other business to come before the committee tonight? Not, I accept the motion to adjourn. All right.